Welcome to the Femsplainers. I'm Christina Hoff-Summers.
And I'm Danielle Christina. And we're joined in the studio with Ella Ryder. Hi, Ella.
Hi.
So this week, we've got, the theme is going to be toxic femininity. Does it exist?
Ooh.
What is it?
Ooh, like female villains or just female misdemeanors and crimes against
I don't know. We've got a guest who has written a book called Toxic Femininity, and it's supposed to be a comedic book. I said ironically, this woman, her name is Ginny Hogan. She's a stand-up comedian. She worked in tech for 3 years, and she's using it kind of ironically to sort of indicate what a hostile world being a woman in tech is. But we'll talk about that more. But it sort of led us, you and I, to talk about, well, what is there actual toxic femininity, and what does it look like? And so I thought we could get into this. But you have a reaction. You were over at dinner the other night, and talk got to politics, which it does these days, especially D.C., and we were talking about, I don't want to trigger you. We're talking about Elizabeth Warren. You okay? Can I keep walking? I'm going to keep talking.
I'm hyperventilating.
Okay, we were talking about Elizabeth Warren.
And Yang Gang. I'm sorry.
And I
came home from that party and donated money. I did. Like an inappropriate amount because I donated under the influence. In the morning I thought,
you were so like banging the table and
But I got Caitlin Flanagan to agree with me, and then she tweeted about the Yang Gang, and then he tweeted back how much he liked her.
Oh, well, have you tweeted about the Yang Gang?
I did, and he didn't tweet back to me. I said I was jealous.
Maybe you're toxic.
I know.
Maybe you're a toxic.
I'm a toxic
woman feminist. But anyway, I made the mistake of allowing in your presence that I found Elizabeth Warren really interesting, and we were talking about her as a woman and the phenomenon of her. And she had given, I did allow that she'd given this speech in Washington Square, New York, which I watched and listened to. And the thing that I was saying that I liked about her is she's like all about civility and not criticizing her opponents and, trying to counteract.
All of that, and I used to like her. And sort of wanted her to win.
But then at the top of the speech, and you have the quote in front of you, I did bridle at this.
She's at Washington Square Park. Thousands of people are there, and she says, I want to give this speech right here, not because of the arch behind me or the president that this square is named for. Nope. We're here today because... No, she said, we're not here today because of famous arches or famous men. In fact, we're not here because of men at all. And then she goes on, we're here because of these hardworking women. And then she tells this heartbreaking story about
true story.
One of the worst disasters in, American, in the workplace ever, the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, where almost, I think, 150 women died jumping from the building. And it was a tenement sort of factory. And
1910, right? Or
1911, March 25th, 1911. Right. Do you know that I just realized that I went to NYU and the building where most of my classes is that building?
Huh.
Because it was stone. Everything inside, everything was flammable, and it just exploded, and everything was drawn into this vortex of destruction. But the building stood. And now they're NYU classrooms. But anyway,
before
she was right there in Washington Square, and she says, this is just about women. It's not about men. And then she talked about this tragedy that befell. Mostly women died, of course, but there were male heroes who, if they hadn't been there were two elevator operators. I think it was Joseph Zito and Caspar Montillo. And they kept going up and trying to bring the women down because they were on the upper floors, and they would feel that the doors were hot, and they'd open them, and just the women would pour in, and they'd close, and then there was an African American elevator mechanic in the basement that kept it going. If it wasn't for these three men, 100 more women would have died.
Right. No, I found that out, and it was right out the gate. It was like in her, as you pointed out, like right at the top of her speech, and thousands had just shown up in the square, and a lot of them men's votes
and boys. Think of
matter.
Boys.
And she's a mother. She's a wife.
She has a son.
She has like a very seemingly great family life. So I was a little taken aback by that, and I hope that doesn't continue.
Hope it doesn't continue.
But yes, okay. I thought that was a fair point.
And where I'm not set on Yang, but he does try to be inclusive and try to represent all Americans, and that's what we want. We want someone who's not going to be dividing and saying, "Well, I'm for you," and not this other group. We want a politics of inclusion and not common enemy, not making men the other.
I'm wondering too if this sort of a backlash against men that we're always talking about will dissipate also if Donald Trump is not elected.
I think
a lot of it is
such a bad example.
So speaking of toxic masculinity.
No, I do think that here you have is the president, this worst case example of pathological masculinity, and there he is. So
we're to be fair, it's making a lot of women
crazy
and rightly so. But to also in the men can't. I think we should start something called the Department of Men Can't Win. There was an article. One of the articles we pulled to discuss was from Psychology Today, and the title was "Nice Guys with a Dark Side," and it talked about something. This has started a term. These terms have started. I've started to notice them, but they're not new terms. Mm-hmm. But they seem to be getting used more and more. Called hostile and benevolent sexism. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yes. It's a theory that was proposed by it's Susan Fisk and
Peter Glick, 1996.
And Susan Fisk in and it's sort of that like men can't win because if they're solicitous and try to be helpful, then they're patronizing and demeaning. And then if they just treat you like a guy, like it happened to me once. I got on an airplane and I couldn't lift my bag. And I just asked a man if he'd mind. And he says, why don't you just check it in if you can't lift it up,
Yeah.
Now, I don't even think he should say that to another man, but he said it to me.
Yeah.
And you know what?
He was hot. Well, no, but I think he was the ideal.
Is this what you want?
No, apparently.
Because there was a happy ending. When the plane landed, all the men around me jumped up to get it down for me and show him that,
Well, okay, but then now they're benevolent sexists. So, okay, so...
No, they were nice guys.
According to
and they didn't have a dark side.
Well, Christina, you're so naive.
I know. What were they trying to do?
What? No, here's...
What was their...
Here is the problem.
Agenda.
And this, remember, and this probably arises from this 1996 theory, or a lot of it, where women say, a man goes to hold the door open, and women say, I can open it myself. So hostile sexism, according to Glick and Fisk, sees women as less competent and intelligent than men, too emotional and manipulative. They see women's sexuality as their main or only desirable trait, which they use to gain control over men. So that's kind of the incel view of the world, right?
Yeah, and it's not the common view. So the fact that they even consider this, like it represents some wide swath of the male species. I mean, they don't behave that way. I don't recognize that.
Well, okay,
occasionally.
We're hoping that those are in the vast minority. In contrast, according to this theory, women may unknowingly find themselves vying for the attention of a benevolent sexist. The guy who opens the door,
takes
her coat, gets her a drink. Could be an undercover benevolent sexist. The main difference between hostile and benevolent sexists is that benevolent sexists view women more positively, I hope so, than do hostile sexists. In fact, benevolent sexists see themselves as holding women in very high regard. The problem is that the network of beliefs held by benevolent sexists conflicts with gender equality. So even though they're nice, they think of you as weak. And that's so I think that man on the plane who told you to lift your own damn bag.
I am weak, and well, when it comes to lifting my bag, but I think you could lift my bag.
I work out in order to lift your bag, but it's this concept. I think Ella, you were the one who pulled this article. There were like 3 concepts of benevolent sexism that all could be potentially misleading to a woman who falls for this type of man. What are the three types?
Well, they're incredibly dangerous. They are idealized romanticism, which is when a man, despite his own accomplishments, feels like he's not complete without the love of his woman. There's complementary gender roles in that women are kinder and more sensitive and thoughtful and caring than men, and that's what makes them ideal wives and mothers. And then there's also protective paternalism, which stems from the first 2 and suggests that the fairer sex, women, should be cherished, protected, provided for, and put on a pedestal. I kind of like that.
Well... The problem is that's like kind of the end of the article, and it says like you can fall for these men, and you might it might take some time to figure out that they're not just nice men with good manners, but that they are. But I don't get what is the problem.
Well, this has been something that
what happens if you are with a man who does that? Why is it bad for you?
You have to make sure he doesn't consider you an inferior, and this isn't a way for him to sort of mark his superiority to you, and that he's patronizing you. The idea is that he's patronizing you because he's smarter and better and more fully human, and so I would not take that. I mean, I would be pleased when someone behaves like a gentleman, and I think a lot of women are, but not all are. And so this was written by a psychologist I respect, Amanda Rose. She's done some good research on differences between. She did a wonderful study on the difference between boys and girls, adolescents, in talking about their problems. And what she found was that girls really feel better if they sit down and talk out their problems. And then she asked boys, a large number of boys, she said, "How does it make you feel?" And they said it was weird and a waste of time. And then what I thought was especially interesting, unlike a lot of the gender warriors who want to, pathologize boyhood and rescue boys from their maleness, she said that actually men not talking about their feelings may be conducive to mental health, and that might be why more women are depressed. Because one way that depression shows itself is that you just can't stop ruminating, and a little bit of stoicism just maybe. We
all need a dose of stoicism. Yeah. Well, I see what you mean, Christina. I'm just now actually. She did sort of explain. She said one of the examples she gives of when benevolent sexism can be dangerous. It says, women may appreciate their partner intervening at a bar when a drunk guy hits on them, but not appreciate being told that they should not go to the bar on their own. So I see that.
Well, that would be weird.
It's sort of, yeah.
You see, to me, she's describing a kind of terrifying character in, a TV movie, or in, where he seems like a nice guy, and then, I don't know, I'll order for you, and then he's like a psychopath.
Right. And that sort of bleeds, I guess, into the workforce, which is what we're going to talk about with Ginny, that this, I think all of us have experienced this genuine kind of benevolent sexism in the office. Maybe that's where you see it a lot, where men, will listen.
Patronizing.
Yeah, and they listen patiently. Yeah, good. And,
and then you're rolling their eyes.
Or ignoring or whatever.
Or they say, don't worry your pretty little head about it.
Well, I think if they did that today, they'd be frog marched out of the building. I think that would be problematic.
They would be excommunicated.
Well, no, I mean, this is the benevolent ones are the ones who seem nice. They seem like they're listening to you. They, but you're really not getting listened to. So I can see that. So we'll talk more about that with Ginny. But to go back to our main theme of toxic femininity, you and I, we talked a couple of episodes ago about watching the Dave Chappelle new comedy special. And then we went recently and we watched together the new Bill Burr.
I know, and you didn't even
special.
go to sleep.
I know. Well, we watched it maybe earlier than usual, but yes, I didn't fall asleep. It's amazing. And I've been reading. I mean, Dave Chappelle was sort of, I mean, he was considered edgy for the things he said about men and women and canceling men and defending Louis C.K. But Bill Burr
Been a lot farther.
It was filmed in London, and the first 10 minutes he is just ripping into.
Well, I mean, the best line was he said, "Should we believe all women?" And then he looks sort of skeptical, and then he says, "People say, oh, they can't make something like that up. Women don't make those things up." And he says, "Well, have you seen Star Wars? Somebody made that up." But I think it wasn't offensive what he did, because he made a very good point. He said that you don't believe all women, not because they're women, because they're human beings, and human beings make shit up. They lie.
Like Star Wars. And then he blamed everything on white women. I think right? Ella, he said, blame, what did he say?
He's like, I don't know how it started. All I know is that white women started it.
That's right. We got triggered by our warm glass of rosé and said that was it.
And then he said, if women ran the world, there would be no war. And he said, evidently, there'd be no due process either. And then he says about male feminists. Do you remember that? And male feminists, something like,
that was
what kind of a man still has his balls in walking around saying he's a male feminist? He says, you can't be that. You can't. Well, I can't remember the joke.
No, I remember the joke. He said, anybody who says he's a male feminist, what did you do? You're so guilty of something, and I want to know. And look, like Justin Trudeau and all the trouble he's in.
Oh, yeah.
He is like a perfect example of anybody. Like, I think anybody on a date or somebody says, I'm a male feminist, you go, okay, this is bad news. I don't know what, but it's bad news. But Ella, one of the things people were, I think that was so strong off the top. I was reading reviews about it, and people were saying, well, if you get past the first 10 minutes, and then he goes on and talks hilariously about robots and sex and other things. And I asked my 28-year-old daughter, who loves comedy and loved the Dave Chappelle, and she felt that those first 10 minutes, she said, I don't know, I think he just went a little too Joe Rogan-y. He was too, it was too angry. It was too intense. I didn't experience it that way, but Ella, you're more of that generation. Did you have that kind of reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't subtle. And I think the Dave Chappelle special, Dave was a lot more subtle and told stories to kind of lure you in or kind of played jokes on the audience. Bill Burr didn't do that. He was more just kind of telling you what he thought and very angry. Right. I think he's kind of just had it. I don't know. Part of it wasn't that he thought it was funny as much as that he just wanted to get to the stage and just be like.
Well, that was what last week with Caitlin when she talked about Caitlin Flanagan when she talked about that woman on Twitter who just loses it. Yes. and I think, I think we're going to see maybe more of the Bill Burrs of the world just losing it. We're all losing it. We're all losing it. This is why we need, Christina, this is why we need someone like Elizabeth Warren to just come in and make us all calm again.
Calm us all down. Like
us all
strict
down.
School teacher.
All right. But okay, so
she has a plan.
She does have a plan.
I do want to know her skincare plan.
Yeah.
She looks so great. What I do like about her is the way she runs up on the stage. She's cute. She's smart and
she's 70.
She's 70.
Which is,
She's older than you are.
Even me. Yeah, no. So anyway, so let's start off our topic, our theme of toxic femininity. One of the essays we keep meaning to get to, which is along these lines, came out a couple weeks ago in The Cut and went viral. This essay on toxic female friendships by Carolyn Calloway, and she basically recounted a girlfriend from college who became an Instagram sensation.
But who was sort of glamorous and everything she wanted to be, beautiful, creative.
Yeah,
original.
she was that girl in the unique. She's just got everything together.
And then she sort of glommed onto her to bask in her glory, but resenting it all the time.
Right, because she was writing a lot of the Instagram material that got this girl famous, and then they worked on a book together. But she started to realize that this friend was, I think she sounded like a narcissist, honestly.
But I think
it was
she
just
sounded
a kind of
like
user.
She was mentally unbalanced. I didn't really. She seemed careless, but she didn't seem mean. The author seemed mean.
Well, she just wrote about this whole personal essay about this devastating, what she felt was a devastating betrayal of this friend. And then there was this follow-up essay in the Washington Post saying, why did this, otherwise pretty personal essay about a quite specific type of friendship, why did it go viral? And there was this follow-up article that said, because so many of us women have had toxic friendships. And the Post wrote, the reporter talked to a bunch of millennial types and Gen Zers, and I totally identified with this essay. They said they pointed commonly to deception and bullying, that these toxic friends would make up lies or spread gossip or were mean to their other friends. And some students said they broke things off directly, and others severed the friendship by moving away for college, et cetera, et cetera. So did you have toxic? Is this just like a female thing? Do men have? Everybody must have toxic.
Much more female than male, and men don't play. Just relational bullying is more common to females. Men excel at physical bullying, but at relational, it's more women, and we do it better. And that's why even when people talk about toxic masculinity, they're toxic femininity. In a marriage, people can make one another miserable in different ways, but women excel in just
the passive
aggressive, put down, sting, just kind of cutting remarks and finding out your vulnerabilities. But in this case, I just thought it was a dysfunctional friendship, and I did not sympathize with either, and I didn't know why the New Yorker published it.
Yeah, it was kind of specific, but
I think it's like the new stage of Me Too for girlfriends. Now we're going to out our friends.
And Christina!
I know. Well, I'm keeping records, and I have a list because
got an essay
in our friendship,
shortly.
Like, which one's the Natalie and which one's the?
Yeah, Natalie.
I don't know. I think I'm the one that. No, I think that we just get along. Well, we don't do these things.
Well, I think it's also an age thing that this seems to be, Ella, I mean, just intense. And look, my youngest is 17 at an all-girls school. And it seems if you say, look, women can be poisonous. Boys are different. Boys will do other things. But that sort of poison whispering campaign of exclusion, pretend like you can get called a sexist for that. But everyone who has been a woman knows that this is true.
Now I'm remembering. I was in it must have been 10th grade. And I went with my best friend. Should I say her name? Debbie Hill.
You've occasionally said, you're just like my friend Debbie. Now I know what this means.
I love Debbie. And I've since reached out. We've talked, so maybe she's listening. But Debbie, I still resent this, and she's still sorry. A new girl, very popular girl, wanted to hang around with us. But then Debbie and I, and this very popular, we were hanging out together, and then they sort of bonded, and then Debbie started being mean to me. And then I just got out of the car in Huntington Beach about 15 miles from home. We'd driven in her car. I don't know how she was driving that car. But anyway, I drove, and I had my mother and grandmother came and picked me up. And I had to explain. And then, then she called and said, "I'm sorry, Christina."
Well, no, the three-way friendships are super toxic.
But this was toxic. And I will never forget that car. And I just got out. Yeah. I was so mad. But this girl wouldn't get out. She would stay there and just take it and resent it and then come back for more.
Right. And the Post points out, and it's interesting that this friendship we were discussing is based on helping her with her Instagram account, that social media is of course enhancing this whole thing, because you can see the parties you aren't invited to and people hanging out together, and so you're now competing not just you're now not just having your real life friendships, but you're also now dealing with these whole virtual friendships. And
a few weeks ago I was out with a young member of my family who's in junior high, and she was mortified. Something she'd seen that her friends were doing, and what she was afraid is they would find out what she was doing, which was having dinner with her aunt and and her friends.
Well, I think also in your 20s that everybody is, men and women, are trying different things, especially in college. You're trying to figure out who you are. And I think a lot of your friendships, you do. Maybe women are attracted more to women they want to be like, and you just sort of go through friendships, which by the time you reach our age, you're kind of, I think, sort of settled in your group of friends. You've found people who...
You're not
you've sort of gotten rid of a lot of toxicity from your life. So I think it gets better. Except it's the last friendship we'll talk about, because I read this article in The Guardian and it kind of broke my heart. This is by the person who wrote it was anonymous, and it was titled "A Letter to My Friends with Children." And she writes, "It happens every time. I know it will, and I don't begrudge it, except I do a bit. It's happened so often. And now that I'm in my late 40s and I'm so practiced at this, I can't help but have the same awful thought every time a friend announces she is pregnant. Well, there goes another friendship."
Oh.
And she goes on to talk about that she calls herself a woman who is child-free by choice. I hate that term, child-free. It's like now sugar-free or now rat-free or whatever. Drug-free. Is a great career, wonderful husband, travel, blah, blah, blah. But every time she has a friend who has a child, they just go. And she'll invite them out, and she'll say, "Hey, come take a break. Come have some wine at my house," and they just never do.
Well, they become, it was in Bridget Jones' diary, she called them the smug marrieds.
Right.
And they just...
But this woman is married.
But she's not smug. It's not like a little, flaunting the... It's now kind of a luxury to have a family. It's hard to do. And so people resent that someone's married and have children, even though, meantime, the people with the kids... There are other stories in that feature. Is this from the Daily Mail?
No, this not for once. No, it's from the Guardian.
They're people with the children are driving them crazy, and now there's no more sex, and on and on. So smug marrieds have their own.
Well, no, I think actually what I remember is it's a product of a couple of things. The first is obsessive modern parenting. That once women have their baby, especially if she's in her late 40s and these women are having their first children later, that they never go out. Like the whole life begins to revolve around the child. I can't think of nothing better than saying one evening, "Okay, I'm going out. Going to go hang with my single friend and have wine," or my childless friend, I should say, have wine, watch a movie, be uninterrupted. It'd be such a break. And she writes this, but they won't do it because I think they're too obsessively attached or unwilling to
well, in their behalf, if they are working full time and they have baby, they're frazzled. Well, they're lucky. They're just lucky they can, get any sleep.
Well, that's the other thing too, and I think you'll remember this as a mother with small children, that mothers' groups divide between working moms and at-home moms, and it's not just because of circumstances. It's because it's like
I never liked those mothers. I never did you?
The two, oh my God, yeah.
I never got along with the mothers. I mean, I did, but I just wasn't.
Well, we're too individualist, I think, because when you're with a group of mothers, and this is the thing about women that's so odd. I used to feel like I'd come back from a play group and I'd tell David, it's like a Marxist gathering. Like everybody has to be exactly equal. We have to be all of the same opinion. Pacifiers are bad. And if you say, hey, I love the pacifier, it's like everybody looks at you like you violated something.
Without pacifiers.
Oh, I know. But like it's that kind of thing. And I think in a way it's why maybe these friendships are difficult, because I've had like a theory that women need a kind of parity in their friendships. Like if you have small children and I have small children, it works. But if you don't have children and I have children, it's like we need to be with people who are in exactly the same circumstance as us. I've heard of women who get divorced and get dropped by all her married friends. We talked about that with Candace Bushnell.
But I think that's changing. I think all of this is changing because, as many sociologists have pointed out, that there was a time where you were really an outsider if you weren't in an Ozzie and Harriet home with, married and have kids. And now that's not the norm even.
Right.
So there's, a lot of people living alone. There are a lot of people divorced, mothers, single, all sorts of arrangements. So I think it's going to be hard to keep those rigid little groups together. But
Ella, do you find it's true in your friend groups that, I don't know, girls with boyfriends, girls without boyfriends?
Yeah, there's definitely, especially in college, freshman year, when people start meeting someone and the people who are still with like a high school boyfriend and they're doing long distance and they're free on a Saturday night and they're like, let's go out. And then all the girls with their boyfriends are like, actually, I have a date, I have to go. That definitely caused problems within my friend group, within other friend groups, of just kind of, you might invite your friend out, but they're always going to feel like they were third wheeling, even if they themselves do have a boyfriend. Yeah, I think it's just kind of.
Do you think it's? I mean, I guess men
have never had this conversation.
We've all the male listeners are slowly dropping out of that. Sorry, come back, stay. All right, well, let's get to our guest. I'll give you a quick FemFacts bio. Ginny Hogan is an LA-based writer and stand-up comic. She's a contributor to The New Yorker, The New York Times, Cosmopolitan, McSweeney's, and Forbes recently profiled her as a rising star.
And she has a new book.
Yep.
Toxic Femininity in the Workplace.
And she's also a sex and dating writer at Elite Daily. In any case, this should be pretty interesting. So let's bring on.
So can I just
Ginny.
bring up the elephant in the room before we bring them on? We bring her on. You're not drinking.
I know.
What's up,
everybody? If my podcast seems flat today, it's because I've got La Croix sparkling water. Which my daughter calls the taste of sobriety, because you know what it is? It's Sober October.
Oh,
it's Sober October.
I don't observe that.
Remember
holiday.
Last year I did Sober October. I sort of did it. I cut out wine, but I'd have like a scotch on the podcast.
Oh,
and now I'm like I'm really going to try do it. And any listener who wants to join me. We can talk about it. We'll go on social. Well,
I'm not joining. And anybody that's not joining her,
go drink with Christina.
I've got
but I'll let you know how it goes. I'm sort of curious because I love wine.
I don't see the point of it. I mean, if you had a drinking problem, but I don't think I have a drinking problem.
Maybe.
Except that donation the other night.
You're yang ganging.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Well, yes. So I'll check in with everybody, and if you want to join me, please, I'd love to hear from you. And anyway, okay, let's bring on Ginny. Christina, some say making your home beautiful is the ultimate form of self-care, but I think making my bed beautiful is the ultimate form of self-care, because we spend a third of our lives in sheets. So don't we want them to be insanely comfortable? And so when you sleep well, but you can sleep on hotel-quality sheets that don't cost an arm and a leg with Brooklinen.
I completely agree. And people are loving and recommending brooklinen.com. They have something like 35,000 plus 5-star reviews, more than any other online bedding company. And that means like 500,000 happy sleepers and still counting.
And it was founded in early 2014 by husband and wife Vicky and Rich Fulop, who wanted to find beautiful home essentials that didn't cost an arm and a leg. And their mission is to make you comfortable.
Luxury sheets, towels, bedding, and more without the luxury markup. Most bedding is marked up as much as 300%. And these sheets don't just feel great, they look great too. And you can mix and match about 20 or more colors and patterns.
My Brooklinen sheets are the most comfortable sheets I've slept on, and their towels have turned my bathroom into a spa. And now our listeners can get an exclusive offer of 10% off and free shipping when you use promo code FEMSPLAIN at brooklinen.com. That's 10% off anything and free shipping if you use promo code FEMSPLAIN at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Promo code FEMSPLAIN. Ginny, welcome to the Femsplainers.
Thank you for having me.
We were really fascinated by the fact that you worked as a data scientist in San Francisco. Christina loves talking to women who have crossed the barriers of technology and
well, just entering an all-male field, which I did. I became a philosophy professor. And then noticed there weren't very many women around. And you'd go to the American Philosophical Association. It was just 1,000 men with beards and pipes and thoughtful expressions, but very few women.
Yeah.
So was it like that, sort of a total...
Can you say where you worked, or are you keeping that out of your...
I can say some of the places. I worked at Facebook for a summer, and I worked at a company called Lending Home that did mortgages.
Wait a minute, Lending Home, they had my mortgage, and they still owe me money.
Oh, no.
Oh, wow.
Maybe Ginny knows how to hack the system.
Can you hack it for me?
Yeah, I'll ask one of my friends.
No, they didn't. They don't owe me money, but I was like a day late on some paper, and then they canceled the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
It was a home equity loan. It was right at the beginning of the whole meltdown.
Oh, okay.
And I just said, wait a minute. I just was...
Well, that's because they were all men.
But yeah.
Christina, that's why they did it.
It was the pay.
That company was like the most male-dominated.
Well, tell us what it was like. I mean, you're young. I mean, you're 27 now. Is that right?
I'm 28.
Okay, so you've turned 28, and you worked in Silicon Valley for what, 3 years, I think?
Yeah, 3 years, yeah.
And it seems like, I mean, your book, Toxic Femininity, it's really about what men would consider toxic. I mean, it's a fairly dark look at that everything that is about a woman's better instincts or skills or impulses being squashed by male colleagues. And
yeah,
I guess they view it as the men view it as toxic.
The men view it as toxic. Do you think this is generally true in workplaces, or do you think it was especially true in tech? Like, what brought you to have this kind of, I guess, dark view of the world?
Yeah, so, I mean, I thought it was, obviously the book is an exaggeration. I did think in tech the sexism was pretty bad. There was just there was a ton of subtle stuff, and then there were a few extremely overt things. So one of the subtle things is we would interview women, and the team would be like, oh, she just doesn't really seem like a culture fit, or like, you know, she's not someone I'd want to like have a beer with. And that sort of thing happened a lot, as well as kind of like me being asked to do things that I didn't think were really appropriate, like planning team outings or like taking notes or something.
Team outings. Team outings.
Yeah.
My God, what outings did they want to go on?
Oh, that's common.
Like if we were going to like a team lunch. Yeah, I mean, tech companies definitely have like a lot of money to spend on their employees, which is nice. But
So you go to Marine Land or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, and you do those sort of corporate trust exercises, and you stand in circles and
close your eyes and
reveal, what was the craziest thing you ever did, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we definitely had some of those too. Yeah, the retreat.
But what was it? I mean, these are presumably fairly young men, correct? I mean, youngish, in their 30s or late 20s.
Yeah, they're late 20s up to like late 30s, or probably early 20s up through late 30s. Yeah, tech is like a pretty young industry, and I was in my early 20s when I worked there.
So these should be the enlightened men, right? Like not the old pipe smoking philosopher sexist type of men.
Right.
But so,
and I will say, yeah.
What was that about?
I mean, I think the problem is that a lot of them had truly only worked with men before. So something that happened at both of my companies is when I interviewed, there was another woman on the team, and then by the time I joined, she was gone. I don't know if that's just they always feel like they have to have one woman or something. I mean, I don't think she was fired in either case, but that definitely like gave me pause both times. So I think that a lot of them are just not used to working with women, so they don't realize a lot of stuff. I mean, stuff like calling adult women girls and that sort of thing, I think there were times where I would call someone out, and it did feel like it only took once. Like people didn't do it again after I had told them not to. But then there were other times where I just felt like they just had kind of no regard for the people they worked with. So I think I would say even though it's a young industry, and I think people are like generally well-intentioned, I think a lot of it is that they just don't know.
That's interesting because, again, you'd think that this was a more enlightened generation, but is it just something like, is it like bro culture, or is it like being around a men's sports team and then, I don't know, you're the woman who walks into the locker room? Is that?
I think there's maybe more Asperger's than you might find in the men's like sports team. No, because
in the tech world.
Yeah, I think in the tech world there are men that
they're so nerdy,
excel at spatial reasoning and their mathematical skills, but emotional intelligence may not be their strength.
Does that sound right, Ginny?
Sound right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think it is. There's like a kind of obsession with like objectivity. So they really want to feel like it. They really want to feel like they're measuring an interview candidate strictly on how well they've performed at a technical interview, but they're maybe not taking into account the fact that someone like is in certain circumstances is less likely to perform well because it's like someone's being made nervous for some reason. So I think that that's kind of a problem, is that they really like put a huge emphasis only on exactly what can be measured. And for that reason also they hire people who are really poor communicators or unwilling to take feedback and that kind of thing because they happen to be good programmers.
Ella, you have a couple of examples of what you mean by quote unquote toxic femininity. And Ella's just going to read a couple and give our listeners a flavor of what you're writing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So this is from a New Yorker piece. So the first one is, Sharon leads a meeting. She books the conference room for 30 minutes. Participants speak only when they have something relevant to say. So the meeting is over in 20 minutes. The room sits empty for 10 minutes, giving a family of rats time to move in. And then the second one is, Jessica begins speaking, and no one speaks over her. She didn't actually have an ending to her presentation prepared because she expected to be interrupted. She is mortified.
Yeah. So the first one is about, like, you think women are much more efficient at running meetings, and the second that they're completely used to getting talked over.
Yeah.
So why don't we run the world? Why not? If we're the superior sex, why can't we just take over?
Yeah. So I did get like a lot of negative pushback from that after that article that was about like women do bad things at work too, which is very true. But I think it is sort of missing the point, which is that like I'm not suggesting that we should have an all women workplace and that women should be the only ones who work, but that like more that when things are so imbalanced, it's like basically so many of these workplaces are basically all men. So I was trying to imagine the opposite.
Have you gone into any office environment subsequently, like, and maybe it's been less bad?
Yeah, so I've had jobs in media since then, and part of it is like I actually have almost entirely worked with women.
I was to say, in media, you're entering women's land, women's world.
Yeah, it's really, I like it a lot. Yeah. And it doesn't make everything perfect. It doesn't mean that people are, like, it doesn't automatically fix all problems, but it has been like a very nice change.
Well, I remember being in a boardroom, and this was a very integrated company, but it did have that tech vibe where there were like bouncy balls to sit on and mini ping pong tables. And,
oh God!
And men, I think they were all like, yeah, there's a little bit of a bro thing going on at the top. And I remember being in the boardroom and all these sports metaphors, that's cliche that they would use them, but in fact they did. And finally I just said, it's really important we kick this puck through the goalpost. Just to complete, I just made a habit of mangling sports metaphors with a complete poker face just to kind of
funny.
Troll.
Well, so I once had an interview for a job at Wellesley College to teach philosophy, and in the interview later, a woman in the department said, "Oh, I can see you've never taught at a girls' college because you used war metaphors, to elucidate your opinion." I used war metaphors. Women can use war metaphors and sports metaphors. I resent it.
Yeah.
Well, you especially, Christina, because you actually follow sports, unlike me.
Red Sox.
But one of the things you did as a data scientist, which I found really funny, is that you started a blog where you would analyze data from your own dating profiles and online dates.
Yeah.
What was that about?
Yeah, it's kind of, it started as a one-off because I worked at Facebook and they gave us ad credit, and I thought it would be funny to run Facebook ads advertising myself to date, basically. So I was going to collect data and then...
You mean those ads that pop up in your feed? Like you did one of your...
So you popped up? There you were?
Date me?
Yeah, I popped up. Yeah.
And what happened?
Did you meet a nice guy?
No, I didn't meet any nice guys.
Oh, God.
But then I sort of did it with a lot of different a lot of different websites. Like I did it with, I think, YouTube and Reddit. And then I wrote one that went kind of viral that was like, it was about analyzing all of my online dates to figure out what correlated to someone like being a good date, basically. And yeah, that was pretty weird. But
what does correlate with a good date?
Well,
we have some male listeners who ask us for advice.
Yeah.
And we give it, but it's baseless. But you're actually out there. So
yeah. What does work?
Yeah, I will say my data set was very small, and I did get a lot of angry emails from men being like, well, the guy was like, this is why women shouldn't do statistics. But basically they were arguing that that I didn't have enough like evidence to make any like statistical analyses or make any hypotheses, and they were correct. It was like mostly a joke, but
you were joking, so that's.
But what were your takeaways?
I don't know. It seemed like in my sample set, I had dated a lot of guys from Cornell, and that like correlated to a good date. Maybe like the word rock climbing. San Francisco is like big in rock climbing.
Ugh, I wouldn't want to.
So these were things that they like to do, or?
Yeah, that was just like things that they listed on their profile.
So that helped, but does that help?
That's who you pulled in. A lot of guys from Cornell who liked rock climbing.
There's a problem there.
Those are the ones I liked. Those are the good dates. Oh. Just imagine the bad ones.
To be honest, I would like a rock climber from Cornell. He'd be smart, athletic, but I don't want to go rock climbing. So,
well, but then you moved out of that, getting into more dating. Actually, I realized what you were doing with that is the original Facebook dating app, which they now have. And I've wanted to talk about on the program, but I don't understand it. So have you figured out the Facebook dating app and how it works? And is it a good idea?
Oh, yeah. So I haven't used it at all, but I did. I mean, I will say when it came out, a lot of people who read my original blog sent it to me. Mm-hmm. I think it's like you can match with someone who's like a friend of a friend, but it's only for people who have opted into Facebook dating. So I think that you don't get the whole pool of all Facebook users. I think it's probably not going to work that well just because everyone's sort of abandoning Facebook. Like, I think maybe if Instagram did something like that, it would work better.
You mean, but it could work for geriatric people, the vast, for older folks, maybe.
That's a plea for help from Danielle. You know what I think is successful? Or arranged marriage. Arranged marriages by relatives. And so my question for you is, you're about the right age. Would you like to meet a nice boy?
Is this about David?
You know any nice boys in Los Angeles?
Oh, in L.A. No, that's tricky. And no.
Yeah, I know where you can meet a lot of guys is, unfortunately, it's like rock climbing. You've got to go to North Dakota.
Yeah, apparently.
North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know what's better than rock climbing is my sister met a lot of cute guys in L.A. Hiking in the Sierra Club.
Oh.
And you could go after work on hikes.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And
they're fit.
And nice girlfriends. It was a good group of people. So
that's true. But you wrote about dating as a comic, and that didn't go well either, it seems.
Yeah. That's kind of because guys like get very into trying to be funny and wanting me to validate that they're funny.
That's all they want. That's all men want. If you find them funny, they're happy.
Well, I think they were more doing like routines for you to.
So they were using her.
Yeah.
The way that Instagram girl.
Yeah.
Was.
Right. Yeah. I definitely didn't really find them all that funny.
We were just talking before you came on about the new Bill Burr special, and
nice.
Women are, especially younger women, are having a bad reactions, especially to the top of it. What did you watch it? What do you think? I mean, there's a lot of male hostility being expressed in comedy today, and kind of interested in what your take on that is.
Yeah, so I didn't watch the Bill Burr special. I actually don't. I feel like I don't watch very many comedy specials because I see a lot of it live. I do think there is like a pushback where people feel like they need to be offensive in order to defend their turf. Like, I think they feel like PC culture is like moving in on them and is preventing them from doing comedy the way they want to. So I think a lot of men like are reacting by being even more offensive than they would be otherwise, just to kind of prove they can. And I'm not saying that Bill Burr is doing that, and I don't know what jokes people are upset about, but that's sort of my general read on kind of what's going on with like the men in comedy who are being more offensive right now.
Do you find it's a problem when you go to these clubs? I mean, you mentioned that you do a lot of sexual raunchy stuff, and it's certainly like a lot of male comedians do a lot of dick jokes that get tiresome, certainly for the female listeners. But
speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always felt like the problem with comedy that I've had is more in how people behave off stage, how the male comics behave. People definitely do have offensive jokes, but it's pretty hard for that stuff to get laughs because I've only been doing it in like very liberal cities. So I think that people who are too offensive their sets don't go very well. But I also know a lot of people who are like not offensive on stage, but then have negative things to say about women off stage. And I found that that's a bigger issue.
Well,
and do you think women should be able to joke about men and say negative things about men?
Oh, totally. And I think men should honestly be able to say negative things about women. I think it just depends on on like how far it's gone. Or
yeah, and if it's mean spirited,
well,
that's
so much of it.
Yeah,
and if they're really, it comes from anger and rage on either side. I mean, women doing.
Well, that's what makes Bill Burr funny.
But I think that the sexes should be able to joke about each other. And there is a kind of war between the sexes in a healthy way where you can tease and make fun. It's when it gets ugly and and when they mean it.
Well, that's
Yeah,
I think what we're saying is a lot of it is getting quite ugly.
But not Bill Burr. He's completely smitten by his wife and his daughter and
benevolent sexism.
oh no, he's darling. And
Well, do you Ginny, do you believe there's such a thing as toxic femininity? Like, really? Like, are men the only sex capable of toxicity?
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. I think that like real toxic femininity is a thing. I think it's just I've always found the argument, like, if people are criticizing men's behavior and someone tries to turn it and say, like, well, women do bad things too. I feel like it's obvious that women do bad things too, and those kind of arguments serve to just like take attention off what's being discussed, basically. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely have. I mean, I've worked with women who did things that were bad for women. I had like an HR director who threatened me one time.
what? She
and that sort of
threatened you?
thing.
Oh, not your
Yeah,
life. Just threatened your job.
No, not my life. Like, just kind of with.
Is she the one that threw the chair?
No, that was a guy.
You got it.
But-
How did I miss?
I
the
did my
chair
research.
being
Some people
thrown-
do their research for the podcast.
How did that chair? What? Okay, tell us about the bad HR lady who is toxic, and then
And the
I want to hear
chair.
about a chair.
Yeah, so the bad HR lady, I mean, that was sort of the
Sorry, we
well, I
don't
don't want to,
can.
I guess
Sorry.
I can't really go into detail, but it was kind of just that I had like complaints about the company, and she sort of told me that if I tried to do anything about them, it would be bad for my it would be bad for my professional reputation.
You know what? That's what
And then-
Caitlin Flanagan wrote a card. Those HR ladies, it's almost all ladies, they work for the company.
Right.
They want to
do,
protect the
yeah.
company. They're not there for...
Was this about a complaint about like male toxicity, or like did it have anything to do with the topic of your book?
It sort of did. I mean, it was about men, but not specifically. Yeah, it was about male toxicity, actually, now that I think about the specifics. Yeah. And then the coworker who threw a chair, that's I worked at this mortgage company, and he had just been crazy for months, but my boss like protected him. And then my boss left and a new boss came in, and he got fired almost immediately. But the chair was like the last incident. Like, he just got mad that someone made a request of him, and he like hurled a chair across the room. It wasn't at anyone, and it was like pretty late at night. I feel like, yeah, I think maybe if I say throw a chair, you're imagining him throwing it at a person. He was just throwing it out of rage, but it was like very scary.
Okay, I'm just going to add one thing. There was a woman in Canada who threw a chair out of a high-rise building because she was freaking out about something at work. And she
Not possible that could ever
It was a
happen in
Canadian.
Canada. Never.
It was a
Never. Canadians don't
Danielle's
do that.
Canadian, and she very
But your point about the HR is interesting. We did talk about this last week with one of our guests, and this frontier of women who are supposed to protect women. When you bring up a problem of sexism, you're the
just
one
thinking,
thrown
like,
to the wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem. That's a female problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, HR like really doesn't work for people at the company, and I think it's like so important to have something like an anonymous feedback channel, because otherwise no one is gonna have the confidence to like bring any issues up.
Do you feel like it's changing in tech culture? I mean, there's been so many complaints like at Uber and
James Damore got fired.
Right. But do you feel that that's changing? I mean, they are trying to bring in women, at least women on the board, and at least solicit female oversight. But did you see any of that changing, or was it just hopeless? The culture was just hopelessly immersed in male testosterone. Sorry.
Yeah, I definitely think I haven't worked in tech in a few years. I think it's probably better post Me Too. I think that would be my guess, is that now people are kind of more aware of how, one thing that's this shouldn't really be the way that things get done, but you can bring stuff to the media and reporters want to write about it, and it's not that. I mean, the fact that companies don't behave better because they're scared of getting bad press isn't really that inspiring. It would be better if they actually thought that was the right way to behave. But even still, it's at least something. So I think that women who have been kind of mistreated at their company and don't have a way of bringing those complaints forward probably feel like it's more possible for them to go to the media. But at the same time, I think a lot of people don't want to do that because that's poses a professional risk as well.
Yeah, no, that's it's sad if that's what we've come to. Well, Ginny, thank you for being on the program. We appreciate it. Good luck with your book.
Toxic Femininity in the Workplace.
Yep.
Office gender politics are a battlefield. Ginny Hogan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, I think Ginny probably just had a bad experience in a bro culture. I mean, that doesn't sound like she's now in media. It sounds like she's
better off in media because it's all. Well, that's another problem. Her next book will be about
toxic female
real
bosses.
Toxic femininity.
You thought the bros were bad, but
she'll be back with those bros.
Yeah. She'll miss them. Oh, and they just threw chairs. That's so obvious.
And these women are like mind games,
backstabbed. Anyway, well, we have some time this week for listener reaction. Ella, I think we had a bunch of people unwisely writing in for relationship advice. I mean, I feel we should have asked Ginny, but, I don't know.
Relationship advice from wine moms. What could be better?
What could be better?
and a sober wine mom, so don't listen to her.
Yeah, God, I'm telling you, this is rough, but
I'm concerned about you. I mean, you're not drinking at all.
I know.
And have you talked to a doctor about this?
I know I'm going to lose all the benefits of that nightly red wine. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to hang in here and report, people. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to walk the walk. So
life is too
stumble
short.
the stumble.
Oh, it's just okay. Moving on.
Wobble the wobble. Okay, Ella. So let's start with the advice because that's always fun.
Yeah. So we have Stephen writing back. So if everyone recalls, Stephen had asked us, or you ladies, for advice on what to do to tell whether or not he should tell his friend that he was in love with her and that she may be the one.
Right. This was a while ago. Stephen, he was in love with his best friend and just said, do I come out with it or not? And
what did we say? I can't remember.
We said come out with it.
Oh,
so
I take that back.
Well, tell us what happened. So what happened to Stephen?
Well, he said that he did tell her how he felt, and she said that she did not feel the same way.
Sorry,
I know. Sorry, Stephen. Everyone's been there, though. And they're no longer friends anymore because he felt like towards the end he was being led on a little bit. And he says, to say I felt crushed is an understatement, not only disappointed, but also the realization I ended a decade-long connection. Oh. I feel like I've turned into one of those lost millennial males.
Oh, Stephen,
sweetie.
What did we do to him?
Well, we've done this to others.
Doesn't he say he's glad to have the clarity?
He said that if you have those feelings, it's better just to find out right away, whatever the outcome, and don't settle and let yourself.
And you know what?
She's
going to come back crying at your door that she missed this.
Don't give him false hope, Christy.
It's not false hope. I see it. I see it happening.
Well, no, I stand by it. I'm sorry you're crushed, Stephen, but you'd reached out to us. I would tell this. I would stand by this advice. I mean, if you've known someone a while and you're just torn up with whether this will work or not, I think you have to find out, I mean, I wouldn't do it on the first date. I wouldn't do it on the second date, but they've been friends, as he points out, for over a decade. So
they can patch it up.
Well, we'll see. But with Stephen, we hope that was good advice and you're not mad at us. And anyway, good luck. But you sound like a great guy. Sure it will work out for you. You're young. Okay,
So
all right.
young,
well,
so young.
All right, now you guys know our advice. We've got more people asking, but
Like basically, whatever we say, do the opposite, and you'll be fine.
outcomes, people.
So, any more problems? Bring it on.
Well, yeah. So Luke, one of our listeners, has a similar dilemma to Stephen. He says he'd love our advice. And long story short, he too is in love with his best friend. He's known for about a year and a half, and they've been friends for almost 4 years. The problem is that she just got engaged 2 months ago to obviously another man, and he's not sure what to do. He doesn't want to say, pick me, I'm the one you want, but he also knows that they have a strong mutual attraction of which they are both aware, and he always imagined that they'd eventually end up together at some point.
Ask her to run away with him. Go to her. Like so many films, when you're about to marry the wrong guy. And
Oh, it's such a rom-com cliche almost, right? Sorry, what does he say?
Oh, he just says, I want to be a good man and a better friend, but there are days when I don't know if I can. I don't think I can go to her wedding and mar the happiest day of her life with the understanding that it will be my hardest.
Okay. What do you think, Christina?
He also, if this helps, he also says that he's only been in love once, and it's with her.
Oh, that doesn't help. That makes it more of a rom-com, and there has to be some hijinks ensue, and so you're waiting for that last scene where, they're all about to walk down the aisle and something happens.
anyone here objects? I now pronounce you, and then I object.
Yeah, but then in the rom-com, she goes, "Oh, I knew it. I've always loved you too." I don't know about this. I mean, what I hear is he's been very, if I may say, it sounds like you've been passive about this.
He's been friend-zoned.
He's been friend-zoned, and he's been passive because he says, "I always hoped something would happen." Mm-hmm. But clearly, he didn't make it happen, and she didn't make it happen. And now someone has come along to make it happen. And he doesn't write, well, is she in love with him? Does she seem genuinely in love with him? Is this other guy a great guy, or is he a looming disaster? I mean, it sounds like, Luke, you kind of lost the...
He's Hugh Grant in For Weddings and a Funeral.
Well, if he is Hugh Grant, then I don't know. Maybe he shouldn't have been friend-zoned. But I don't know, Christina. What do you think? I think he may need to walk away. I mean, I had before my wedding, if I can reveal this.
Oh my God!
Okay,
here we go.
Here we go.
I'm excited.
She's not even drinking.
I know. See, I don't need it, Christina, to tell the truth.
Oh,
actually, I had a man confess to me that he had been in love with me and sort of was it hopeless after I was clearly going to be married to my now husband. And it was a very civil conversation. It was done in a very businesslike way. And once he had ascertained that, no, I was in fact in love with this person and that the rom-com ending was not going to happen, we remained friends. It was very awkward. It was very, very awkward, and I truly didn't really know what to say. But at least he could feel. Here I go, give me bad advice. At least he could feel that it was raised, and I was certain of my mind. So, Luke, I guess if you can find a way.
I know what he should do.
What?
So she's his friend. So you go out for drinks because there should be alcohol.
No, maybe not.
Yeah. Because, did you hear what she just said? I make my case. So you go out and you have drinks and you're just happy and then but you do it in a light, joking way. Like you just say, you're the love of my life and you're marrying someone else. Like, should I pick, just kind of joke about it and then see how she responds. Is that a lame idea? Is that the alcohol speaking?
If you could pull it off, you could also just say, you don't even have to maybe even be that forward. You could just say, take her out for drinks. Say, I'm really happy for you. You seem really happy, right? Get the feeling of happiness. And
yeah. That's a good idea. So you just say, you seem really happy. Like, do you have any doubts about this marriage?
The right guy? Are you sure?
Is he the right guy? And then if she says, I don't know, and then you just
but then he's gonna sound like he was taking advantage of her. Like in her moment of being unsure of this guy, he's gonna swoop in and then be like, "Well,
maybe he doesn't swoop in at that
and what's wrong with that?
Or no, but maybe he doesn't swoop in at that moment. You're right, Ellen. What if she goes, oh, I don't know. Do you ever know, like, who really is in love? Then you know you've got your opening. And then you can go from there. Maybe not that night. Maybe you go the next day and say, I've really been thinking what you said. And I don't know. We're maybe over-gaming this. But I think you could have a conversation without playing your hand fully. Maybe not as fully as the young man with me, but just, are you really happy?
Did you remain friends with that young man?
Yeah, no, I did.
Oh, is that that guy that I see at your house all the time?
No.
The pool boy?
No, I mean, I haven't remained, like, this was decades ago, let me be clear. But no, I mean, it was definitely awkward, but I think I was pretty graceful and polite about it and caring, because I did care for this person as a friend. But I think you can, without, I think he should definitely take her out and maybe listen, but listen hard of what she's really saying, not what you want to hear.
Okay, but before we finish, I have a question.
Well.
So they've always, one of the advice they used to give, what were these books that were out in the 80s about he's just not that into you, and then there was the Rules Girls.
The Rules came first, and then he's just not that into you.
Okay, so in the Rules, one of the things they said, and I have found this to be true, that if a guy is into you, he's just there. He just, every time you turn around, he's there. They're not like, he hasn't texted for 3 days. They do text. They're there. But I think that's true for women, too. If you really like somebody and you're, madly in love with them, you're there and you let them know it, don't you?
Well, maybe, but yeah. So this is what he may be having to face.
You may have to face it.
She's just not that into him too. But anyway, I think what we're coming to the conclusion is there are ways that you can find out that don't necessarily mean you have to disrupt the wedding. Okay, next problem. The doctors are in.
So this is a different track, not quite dating advice, but just kind of advice on how to act around women in public. So to be chivalrous or to not be chivalrous. Nick says, as a man, I sometimes find it difficult to know whether I should be chivalrous, hold the door open for a woman, give up my seat on public transport, ask if they'd like help carrying heavy items, helping Christina put up her luggage.
Definitely.
Should men do these things, even if they risk a verbal assault by an angry woman who thinks I'm trying to maintain the patriarchy?
Nick, you're a benevolent sexist.
No, I have an answer. Definitely do these things, but do them sort of quietly, calmly, just as a matter of course. I think that's very manly. It's just not to like jump out, you're Sir Lancelot, you're doing, but just kind of, and then if you get pushback, then okay.
I mean, I think I do this for people. Like I
hold doors. I've held doors for football players.
No, but there's just sort of. I think you can. I don't. You're right,
a lot of manners.
You don't have to make a big gesture.
No, but a lot of manners are just. It's organized kindness,
right,
and considerateness.
Right. So you obviously. You can very subtly let a woman go ahead of you, or you can hold the door. Whatever you can. I help women put their suitcases up in overhead compartments. Like, it's just courtesy. Can I help you with that? No, I've got it. Thank you. Okay. Like, I think I don't know that that's, despite this fear of benevolent sexism, I don't know that that's such.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Do you find it's a thing? Like, are you? As a beautiful young woman constantly plagued by men trying to open doors.
That's not true anymore. Maybe when I was younger.
Oh, when she says all of, what are you, 25?
24, yeah.
You're younger than the comedian. I wouldn't even introduce you to David. You're too young.
Yeah, I think most women miss this kind of stuff. Maybe when they're younger and they're first getting out in the world, it seems, I don't know, condescending. But I think once you get older and you just kind of appreciate it. And I think most women do notice if a guy doesn't give up a seat for a pregnant woman or an older woman on a subway.
Awful. That's just bad manners. And boys out there, doesn't look good.
But you know what? A lot of women now do it. I do it.
Give your seat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, of course. Youth has to defer to and men have to defer to women. But like I have a 20-year-old guy taking up a seat, and there's an older woman or a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
And people will not think well.
Sometimes what I've noticed is you can, if there's somebody you think should have that seat, but you don't, you're terrified of asking, like you don't want to be insulted either. Like, do I look that old? But what I have done is I have just stood up and vacated the seat and just, gone and hung on to a pole because the seat's open. She's right there. She wants to sit down or need it, she can take it, but I'm not making this big, would you like my seat?
Yeah, no, you just do it. That's right. Just be subtle.
Be subtle. Okay. All right, Nick, we hope that helps you. Benevolent sexist. Anybody else who's been unwise enough to ask our advice?
Yes.
Oh no! It's a big advice week.
Let me just pour a little more wine.
I'll pour some more sparkling water. Okay.
So Roy says in the most recent episode that he had listened to, I heard something that had triggered me. Don't share each other's sexual fantasies. Men consider women to be boring, and women tend to be horrified after hearing their partner's fantasies.
That was Bill Maher.
Bill Maher
said this. Don't share fantasies. They find ours horrifying. We find theirs boring.
Right.
Well, he says that, however, during sexological therapy, which I've never even heard of before today, but he says we were encouraged to share our sexual desires because how can we expect our love life to be fulfilling if we don't share each other's desires? So we did. This is him and his wife. I tried to implement as many things on my wife's list, but none of mine were even attempted. Believe me, I don't like BDSM or golden showers, nor did I mention anything that would involve other women. Yet she was so horrified by my list that she started to condemn me for it. Eventually, we grew apart, and we had to stop making love 7 years ago.
Whoa.
We both feel hurt and misunderstood.
Whoa.
So my question would be, how can a heterosexual couple ever have an emotionally fulfilling love life when sexual fantasies or desires cannot be shared?
Whoa, I guess the answer is you can't, clearly.
What? Well, that therapist forced them to share their fantasies.
Well, but so they did, and if his weren't really
appropriate
or terrible, but they weren't. But then they
S&M or they weren't as
that too, right?
Yeah.
Basically, if you're not talking about it, and the result is no sex for 7 years.
Well, it sounds like she was able to talk about hers.
Well,
he
talked about it, and she was horrified.
And she was horrified.
Or she didn't want to do it. So I don't want to enter into this as a therapist. I would say you clearly need a marriage counselor of some kind and you needed it maybe 6.9 years ago because after that conversation.
Look, there's 7 years. Everybody's gone without sex for 7 or 8 years in a marriage. Come on, admit it.
That sounds like a really bad marriage. Unless you're 95, maybe.
No, I'm kidding. No, they have a chance. They can ignite the fire.
Well, clearly they can't. So I would just say, I maybe go back to that guy and say, thanks for that bright idea. This is what happened. But I'm more concerned about the fact that they neither seem to be able to talk it through, and that this has gone on for 7 years. So I think this is beyond even our pay grade as therapists. But it's sad. It's rough.
I think he needs to get a sex robot.
There is that.
Because they don't say they won't be shocked by his
golden showers, but then it short circuits.
Yeah, you can't. No golden showers. You can get an electric shock.
Okay. I think that's enough advice giving for this episode.
I don't think we answered his question because there is no answer. It's the existential condition.
No.
There's no exit. You're trapped.
I mean, if I would go back and talk through what happened and why it was so unpalatable, but I think this is a case for a therapist. Okay. Was there any more listener reaction? I guess we're kind of out of time for this week.
We're out of time. We'll see you next time.
Yep. And don't forget, please support us on Patreon, and just $1 a month. If all of you get together and do it for us, then
I give a lot more than that to my guy,
support
the Wang Gang. Just like get really drunk and then go on our website and donate.
Yeah, exactly.
Fortunately, I could have accidentally pushed every month.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that.
Okay, well,
but you could do that with us.
We need you to press every month, and then we could, we reach a certain point, we could go ad-free. And you also, those who do donate, get our ad-free Patreon last call, and actually...
Which is the best part of the show, where we're most uninhibitedly ourselves.
Right, and September's is going to be posted by the time you hear this. So anyway, please support us, and thank you. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the Femsplainers. Keep up with us on Twitter and Facebook at Femsplainers and on Instagram at Femsplainers Podcast. Send questions and comments to contact@femsplainers.com.
A big thanks to Ella Ryder, our research and in-studio production assistant, and to Nat Frum, our audio and video editor. And we're proud to be part of the Ricochet Network and grateful to the American Enterprise Institute for allowing us to record in its studio every week in downtown Washington, D.C.
And miss something? You'll find everything you need at our homepage, femsplainers.com, including links to past episodes, our sponsors, where you can sign up to support us, and even to merch. And please don't forget to like us or give us 5 stars on iTunes. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.